So this video is going to kind of be a movie review, kind of a response video, and I guess kind of just me telling a story, because I think the easiest way to do at least the first part of this video is just telling a story. So a long time ago, long before I had a YouTube channel, long before I even thought of having a YouTube channel, I was a bloke who sometimes watched movie reviews on YouTube because, surprise you as it might, movies interest me. And discounting video essays, the two review channels I'd watch are Chris Struckman, who consistently uploads, and I dip in and out of his videos based on if it's a video on a film I'm interested to see. And the other channel who didn't upload consistently, but I did watch all of his releases, was GeekyGlassesTV, or GGTV as it was sometimes called, because it wasn't just the movies themselves I was interested in with his videos, it was also his level of charisma and humour he brought to his reviews, alongside genuine insight, which is a winning combination, you know? Engaging, funny and insightful, sometimes making heartfelt reviews that made you reflect, and sometimes talking about the Calcium Kid, or an hour-and-a-half video on the first Pokemon movie. I love this channel, and then he announced a Kickstarter with the ambition to make a movie called The August Club, and you know, it isn't easy to be sure when YouTubers attempt some creative side project as to whether or not it will be any good. A lot of you will know I'm writing a novel, and should I be lucky enough to publish it someday, I'm sure a lot of you will feel that same uncertainty about me of, would it actually be good though? He can talk about stories fine, sure, but writing his own is a completely different game. But I went straight in and backed the project to whatever the level it was that got me a DVD copy of the film, because it's exciting, you know, a YouTuber I like wants to make a film, of course I backed it, and then I waited. He sent updates every now and then, but I'm pretty bad with checking emails, and the videos on his channel started to tail off until it seemed he might have gone for good. And, you know, I trusted he was just working hard at the film and that suddenly I'd get it someday in the post, but apart from those odd moments where I'd suddenly think, oh, what happened to GeekyGlassesTV, the rest of the time I kind of just forgot and got on with my life, as you do. So, about 2 years passed since I backed the project, and about a year passed without him uploading on YouTube, but I did, 6 months ago, finally get to watch The August Club. And I loved it. It was made on a very small budget of £5,000, and the main actors were kids, but it was really well made. I watched it on my laptop, beaming, laughing, feeling excited when I came away and wanting to let him know how much I enjoyed it, but he hadn't been active on YouTube for forever, and I assumed he'd come back eventually and that I could say it then, but he didn't seem to come back, and I forgot again. On the 30th of September, a video appeared in my subscription feed from a channel called Dan Drambles, and I thought, who the hell is Dan Drambles, until I clicked on it and realised this was GeekyGlassesTV. He was back with a new name and logo and flashy new aesthetics and just everything looking really well made, and he was announcing that for all of October he was going to release a video every single day reviewing horror films, not ordinary horror but wholesome ones, fun ones, horror with heart, and I was excited. I was so excited I made a post on my channel about it thinking some of you might be interested, and then I sat down and enjoyed a video from him every day. Dan has been crushing it since his return. All the insight and charisma and heart he'd ever had, but taken to another level now, and this wholesome Halloween marathon has made October really fun for me. So, where am I going with any of this? Well, on the 30th of October he released a much longer video in the marathon titled, "I Made a Terrible Horror Movie, Let's Talk About That." And my heart sank because I really hoped he didn't mean The August Club. And for the beginning of the video I was thinking he didn't mean that. He was talking about a film he'd made way back when he was 16 called The Last Hallway, and everything he said was a beautifully sincere, honest, wistful look back on the ambitions of this younger Dan making a film that was terrible. I haven't watched The Last Hallway, but if it was anything like the stories I wrote at 16, then it was god-awful, and the way he looks back on it was the way I feel about my old stories. Stories I do not have the courage to dare share with you, by the way. But He felt happy looking back on that time, remembering just how proud the 16-year-old him was about this terrible movie.
You know, in my head it was so professional, it was so amazing. I was showing everybody it, anybody who would watch it, and I put it on YouTube and it got 96 views. Something that would horrendously disappoint me now, I was overjoyed with at the time. I was thrilled.
Which I remember as well. You know, I remember being 16 and feeling convinced I was going to take the world by storm with the novel I was writing back then. And the novel was terrible. Of course it was, but that didn't matter. You know, I was so passionate and so excited to just be writing, and you have that natural kind of arrogance at that age that I miss now. Some of that fades when you get a bit older and face the fact you're not perfect, you're not a prodigy, you still haven't got your life together and still not taking the world by storm. The struggle to realise that becoming a successful artist is actually incredibly hard. Realising that is a massive struggle within itself. But Dan was being an artist. He'd gone out with the initiative and vision to create an entire movie, only here he was reflecting back on how proud the 16-year-old him was with this terrible Last Hallway movie, and wishing he could have felt like that about the August Club. The video became terribly sad as he admitted quite honestly that he didn't feel proud of the August Club, and that through the film's premiere.
I sat in the front row and silently cried the whole duration because it wasn't good enough.
And he felt like he'd let down all the backers who paid money to fund the project. Backers like me. This person I'd been eager to tell for the last 6 months how much I'd loved his film felt like he'd let me and everyone else down. Which is sad. And I cannot recommend watching that video enough, because the openness for him to talk about these things, and like I made that video about self-doubt not too long ago, but Dan detailing his experience says more than I possibly could, and it's an incredibly touching video. And having made this movie he didn't feel proud of, he was terrified of then having to share it with us and ship it out to the backers.
I was so desperate to try and fix it because I was so scared of putting it out there for people to see that I did everything I could to delay it as much as possible.
He spent months and months afterwards tinkering and tweaking and desperately trying to fix whatever it was he wasn't happy with. But as the video came towards its end, he explained,
"It has taken me a long time, and in that time I have had some mental health issues which probably didn't help things along, but I am finally at the point where I can look at the August Club and I can say, I'm proud of that."
Proud enough to then release the film on YouTube for the 31st and final day of his marathon, and so he should be proud. And actually what he's done is so impressive with that context. This is a man who strained heavily under the weight of backers that he felt he was letting down, who stalled on releasing the film and disappeared entirely from YouTube for over a year. To be in that place and then to suddenly rise up back out of it with a new name, a new logo, and an incredible daily upload marathon and just crush it, kill it for 30 days straight is so impressive mentality wise. To come out of all that self-doubt so triumphantly, that's honestly inspiring to see. And so I asked him if he'd mind me making this video, a half response to that video, a half review of the August Club, and me passionately rambling about all the things I loved from the film. I recognise a lot of you watching this might not have seen the August Club, so you could go away and watch it now, I'll link it in the description, or you could watch it later because I will summarise the story as we go through this and explain everything to you. So that's what we're doing now. Me reviewing and passionately expressing why I think Dan should be proud of the August Club. So, after a sinister poem hinting at a larger mystery, we open with panning shots through an empty blue and pink lit house that sets the scene for the film and its villain perfectly without revealing him yet, where the opening credits then take us away to scene 1. We've got the kids Noah and Jack in detention due to some fight they've clearly had with each other, but it's the last day of term before the summer holidays. The teacher can't really be bothered with it and doesn't want to have to phone their parents or anything, so he just insists they shake hands and then sends them on their way. These are the two protagonists, and straight away we can tell everything we need to know about them. Noah is a little bit of a teacher's pet, emphasised by him wearing his blazer, being very quick to point the finger at Jack, and then when the teacher tells him to shake hands, eagerly responding,
"Yes, sir."
And I will see you in 6 weeks.
And then Jack, who's clearly less eager and more keen on maintaining a tougher, cooler image than he is on getting along with the obviously uncool Noah. He doesn't want to shake hands, rolls his eyes at Noah and gives this stupidly limp handshake. And then Noah's mum, who's overly caring, is waiting outside the school to collect him because he was a bit late home and she got worried. And Noah lies that he's late not because of detention, but because he was struggling to find his PE kit, and he then drags Jack in to back up this lie.
What? Oh, aye.
Noah's mum misunderstands, however, and thinks the two are friends, which she's delighted about because Noah doesn't really have any friends. So she tries to be a supportive mum by inviting Jack home for dinner with them, which Jack obviously doesn't want because he'd hate to be seen dead with Noah, and Noah doesn't want because Jack's kind of mean to him, but they fail to talk their way out of it.
We're going caravanning all summer. All of it.
And now Jack is stuck with Noah for the evening until they've had this dinner and his mum will drive Jack home, and that's such a great setup for the two protagonists in a film because it's a very relatable experience, but not an obvious one you remember about school. Like those times where there was a kid completely opposite to you that you didn't get along with whatsoever, but like because your parents somehow had some vague connection to his parents, or because of some situation arising like this, you end up having to awkwardly spend time with this person you hate as though you got on really well. I'd forgotten the times like that growing up, but it's a perfectly awkward setup for a film. That's a perfect window into that very real school kid life where you do get conflicts between being someone's friend or wanting to be cool and not to associate with that person because it hurts your image. That's the typical insecure world of being a young school kid, isn't it? And already the film has tenderness, and already we 100% understand these characters without them having to be explained to us. And Noah's annoyed at how nice his mum is being because it's putting him in an awkward situation that he can't wriggle out of, because doing that would mean admitting Jack isn't his friend and that he doesn't have any friends, which he obviously doesn't want to admit. It's tender, it's relatable, it's real school life. So anyway, Noah's mum drives them back and then sends them out to play while she makes the dinner, and when she leaves them alone, Jack rounds on him, saying,
"Alright, listen here, shithead. You can fuck off if you think this is going to be a regular thing."
They both set out how little they like each other.
"After that, I don't want to see you again." "Fine." "Fine."
And with that settled, they lapse into silence before slowly realising they still have to spend the rest of the evening together and they need to find something to do.
"So, do you want to go to the park?"
And we then meet probably the funniest character in the film, Kyle, who's that local tough kid a few years older than you type thing that isn't actually that tough but appears it when you're a kid because you don't yet have the perception to see through his kind of bullshit tough persona at that age. I love how real the film is in that sense. Dan clearly can remember vividly what being a kid is like because there's so many little relatable touches to these characters that I'll probably point a few out of later on, but it's just nice how real this film feels. But yeah, Kyle is talking complete nonsense to his mates and drinking Frosty Jacks to try and seem tough, but they clock Noah and Jack and he babbles on more nonsense meant to intimidate them while his sidekick Stoogey backs him up with the same droned word every time.
"We just want to have a drink with you, didn't we, Stoogey?"
Aye.
I love that Kyle asks them what they're doing here and Noah says,
"We're just playing."
and Jack's face completely drops like, God, why would he say that? He makes a sound about 5, he's going to completely ruin my reputation. This kind of age bracket the kids are in is always a fascinating age in terms of the transition of growing up. Because at that age you're still very childish and there's still that very innocent side of you that does play and is easily scared and everything, but it's also an age where you've transitioned out of it just enough to see that innocent stuff makes you look uncool now, and you have to kind of deliberately try and distance yourself from it when you're in front of other people as much as you can. And we get a bit of confrontation where Jack is then deliberately trying to distance himself from all of that and seem hard. But Kyle asks if the rumours are true about Jack's dad being an alkie, which is funny when Kyle's, I don't know, 12 years old and standing there drinking cheap alcoholic cider, accusing someone else of being alcoholic.
Yeah, Stoogey, wasn't it you that tell us you seen him the other night in the middle of the road after pissing himself?
Aye.
Things escalate the way it always does when two kids are trying their best to look hard. Instead of fighting though,
There's another way the kid could prove he's hard, isn't there, Stooge?
Aye.
they have to go to the local abandoned house. You know, the abandoned house there is in every town that when you're a kid you hear endless rumours about it being haunted or a serial killer living there or whatever it is. The house is supposed to be the home of a vampire here, and we then get a cutaway as Kyle explains the story of this vampire to them.
It all started ages back. Maybe he's like a whole 50 years ago.
And I love this bit in the film. It's such a fun way to give exposition because it all comes through the nonsense filter of the way Kyle sees things, half trying to make it sound cool and scary, whilst the fact he is still a childish kid who doesn't really have a clue what he's on about seeps through everything he says. Like, even just the fact he seems to think this happened 50 years ago when it's vampires' stories that are normally like 200 years or whatever. And he says about the moon.
He would come down to feast every full moon, right? And then...
Thought that former into a werewolf thing.
Shut the fuck up, I'm telling the story.
And it's just funny having exposition about old characters made to speak in Kyle's modern Geordie dialect.
Once upon a time, right, this town used to be a geet cushty village.
The idea that Kyle tells the story of a vampire waking up from a coffin by sticking 2 fingers into the air is great. And then because Kyle says he's meant to be proper hard, we get hammy shots of the Count smoking and posing and acting the way Kyle does when he wants to seem hard. You know, giving us a very nice, unforced insight into Kyle's mind here. Anyway, apparently the Count Various, as his name is, the vampire, ate children and demanded them from the villagers.
Eventually, the villagers were running out of kids, and so they recruited some priest from another town.
That just makes me laugh. Like, they don't recruit the priest immediately when there's a vampire about, nor when he's demanding kids to eat. That's fine. It's alright for the vampire to eat their kids. It's just when they're starting to run out of kids that it's a problem. Damn, we don't have many kids left now. This vampire thing is becoming an issue. Kyle is such a dumb, unreliable narrator here, and it's fantastic. So the priest gives across magic powers, traps the vampire back in his coffin with it and chains it up. And if Jack wants to prove he's hard, he has to go into that abandoned house and fetch the cross. Of course, Noah thinks that's a bad idea and is following Jack round sort of whining about it, but Jack is insecure and needs to prove how hard he is all the time, so he has to do this. They go in, we get some cool shots of them walking around looking for the cross, and the pink and blue lights just aesthetically makes everything look great here, I think. As does the slow zoom on everything and the tension it adds. And we know what's coming here because we've seen the coffin already, we've had that foreshadowing. They find the coffin, Noah's starting to think the rumours about a vampire might actually be true, because why else would someone keep a coffin in the house? But Jack explains it away by saying,
Posh people are proper weird.
which is great. He gets the cross, trying to hide how scared he is, but obviously he's scared because he's not actually so tough. He's an ordinary kid, which is what I love about these characters really. Whilst they are technically opposites from the get-go that make for a perfect contrasted sort of buddy cop duo setup, they're also actually not opposites at all. They want to appear opposites because that's the surface level insecure world of school hierarchy. Jack wants to seem like a cool kid, Noah just wants to be nice to people in the hope it gets him a friend, yet both of them are just two scared, ordinary kids, you know? So much of the time, these massive differences we have during school with other kids are actually basically nothing, and we could all get along very easily if we weren't so eager to push how very different we are to them. And I say that as someone who works in a primary school as well. So they get the cross, which was the very thing keeping the vampire from waking up. They come out as conquering heroes, but Kyle, in the way every real life version of Kyle does, is eager to shoot them down as fast as he can.
He fucking fell for it.
Eh?
Are you fucking 5, kid? There's no such thing as vampires. That was something Stooge's brother told us when we were 2, and we didn't believe it, then you stupid fucking twat.
He goes to beat them up, but the girl Sarah has had enough.
Hit him again, and I'll hit you.
So he leaves them be, and we see some of Kyle's facade crack for a moment there, but it also means we get to see Jack feeling like the bullied victim the way Noah has probably felt like the victim beneath Jack in the past. So that's a moment of bonding between them, even though Jack doesn't want it to be and tries to distance himself from it.
Piss off. Sorry.
And you know what I also love? We've got all this very vivid experience of that school kid struggle, but without it ever actually really being talked about at all. It's not had to be told to us. We just feel it all very naturally through the plot of this film. I love this bit after dinner as well, where Noah's mum drops Jack home and Jack lies about which one his house is because he doesn't want her to see what his actual house looks like. Only she insists on waiting to see him safely inside, so he now has to knock on some stranger's door and pretend it's his home so she'll drive off, which is a painfully relatable experience that I love in this film. It's funny, but you also really feel for Jack here. And then what we see of Jack's actual home confirms his dad is alcoholic, but it also shows us the same pink and blue aesthetic from the vampire's house. Jack's bedroom is filled with sketches of monster looking stuff, which is a hint, I think, towards this Crimson Man idea, which was something meant for sequels, but it tells us without any need of dialogue that Jack has an interest in monsters and horror, which, again, without any dialogue, later links him to Noah, who wears this t-shirt. So they have something in common, you know? That's clever visual storytelling. I also like that Jack pulls a wad of blue tack off the rails of his bunk bed to stick this poster to the wall as well. Just a nice extra touch that's exactly what you would do as a kid in this situation. It's, you know, it's a small thing, but it's stuff like that that makes it feel more real than if he went and just fetched the blue tack off his desk or whatever. Anyway, the vampire is unleashed and finds Stoogie, and I think provides a perfect example for something I think Dan's managed perfectly throughout this film, which is his use of sound. We get a lot of long, overly dramatic shots here introducing us to the vampire with very dramatic music, and then suddenly it's weird how big a difference sound can make in comedy, and how the right use of sound makes a joke so much funnier. And we see another great example of sound after we see Jack then getting beaten up because Kyle and Stoogie think the vampire was a trick Jack played by getting someone to dress up and scare them. It means Jack now has to visit Noah again and see if it was a trick Noah played, or if the vampire is actually real, where we get the sound effects. Just a perfect transition, and then the way we hear the knocking with the sound effects removed afterwards to kind of undermine it is perfect for comedy. This is genuinely great directing or editing or whatever you call it, you know. For an indie film on a very small budget, this is genuinely good stuff. Noah confirms he didn't play any tricks, so they now have to check to see if the coffin's been opened or not.
Fine, but I bet it's exactly how we left it.
That's not exactly how we left it.
Then they see the vampire and have to hide from the vampire, where we get a shot that I can only imagine took ages to set up because of how hard it must be, firstly to find a big floor spider in the first place, and then to catch it and then to position it on a plate and get it to sit still long enough for this shot without scurrying away. You can tell it took ages because both the spider and the spider wrangler are listed in the credits. After some conflicts, they leg it, and again we get comedy done through sound perfectly, as the dramatic horror of the vampire standing there and the smoke and everything is contrasted with the undramaticness of them standing opposite panting. They lost the cross though. Noah tried using it on the vampire earlier and it got broken, which means they need a new plan.
Hold on, I've got an idea. Mom, this vampire was gonna is. We took the cross from his house and used the knife going near the house, didn't son or anything, and he got stronger and he was all like, "Wah!" Sorry mate, that was all I had.
That bit killed me when I first saw it. How to tell an audience why they can't just go to their parents or the police to help, explained in like 10 seconds through a great piece of visual comedy. The timing is perfect. Noah sort of almost messing up his lines is perfect. Jack standing there gawping in shock at him is perfect. You know, I've seen highly produced big budget comedy films where jokes don't land half as well as they do in this film. So now they have to sort the vampire mess themselves, which is where we come to the third act. They go to the shop and buy all the essentials you need for killing a vampire. Super soakers of holy water and garlic bread pizza. That bit, I think that made me laugh more than anything when I saw this the first time. Noah buying a garlic bread pizza and Jack looking proud, like, good job, that'll do the trick. It's so stupid, I love it. Actually no, this next bit is my favourite joke. They storm back into the house with super soakers in hand, ready to slay the beast, all pumped up, the music's tense, searching round the house for the vampire, except...
Where the hell is he?
I love that. The setup for the typical moment of them encountering the villain for the final showdown type thing, but messing with your expectations by the fact they can't find him. That's such a good joke. And speaking of messing with your expectations for comic effect, the typical cliche thing here is that they would storm back in, fight the vampire and make this scary menace look pathetic and make themselves look really badass, and some cool badass music would play type thing, but that's not what happens. We have a fight scene where the garlic bread and the super soakers achieve absolutely nothing. I said on the video I made on Avatar ages ago that what I love so much about the comedy in that show was that whenever there's moments where it feels like it's veering towards some sort of cliche, they then deliberately undermine it for perfect comic effect. Well, the August Club is full of those sort of moments, which actually I think is what I love best about this film. Although the idea of what the story's going to be here is very clear from the beginning, you still can never entirely predict the way anything is going to happen, because the storytelling itself is creative enough to remain unpredictable and engaging. Anyway, the fight comes to its moment of crisis, but they manage to grab the cross that was broken earlier, which now turns out to be a good thing because it means the end is sharp where it snapped, and they stab him in the heart together and he turns into dust. And then we end with them looking down at the body, Jack talking to Noah, now using Stoogie's single word, I.
We just killed a vampire. I. It was kinda good, like. I? Do you want to be my mate? I.
Whatever differences and insecurities you have would fade away when you both successfully kill a vampire together. And as I said, the differences aren't so great anyway. Looking back now, I think the August Club is exactly what I would have expected from what I've gleaned of Dan through the videos he makes, in that it's great humour, an underlying tenderness and an interest in horror. The pace of the film is perfect, I think. Exposition never slows anything down, but actually enhances the comedy. The character enhances the comedy. The realness of these ordinary school kids in ordinary Britain makes it very relatable, despite the supernatural elements, which are also funny because of how what they think they know about a vampire is undermined by what the reality of a vampire is in this film. The plot is never confusing yet never predictable in the way it's told. The use of sound is spot on. The direction in general is spot on, and obviously the actors are mainly kids, but they're not bad. You know, they manage just fine. All round, it makes for a fun film with a lot of good jokes that land and a lot of heart. Dan should feel proud of what he's made. He should feel proud of a 31-day marathon of videos. He should be proud of how triumphant his return to YouTube has been. Anyway, comment, like the video, let me know what you think. I have links to both Dan's video talking about the August Club and to the August Club itself in the description. Check it out, show him your support, and otherwise, hopefully see you next time. And a special thank you to my Big Fortree patrons Brian Newbert, Devon, David Kling, Darren Burdock-Latter, Kestrel, Gay Hitler, Samara Salsi and Sharakov2814. Thank you.